I was just speaking to corporate leaders, helping them to understand that you need more MSLs to go interface with stakeholders who are delivering care to patients, um, even outside of the clinic and institutions. But how do you measure the ROI of an MSL team, right? Because you spoke to it earlier that the MSL teams are not compensated based on like sales numbers or revenue, that sort of thing. That your primary purpose is education. That could be an expensive proposition for companies who have very high paid salespeople who can't talk about certain things, and you also have MSLs that go talk about those things and educate. That can long term be cost prohibitive, especially if we're concerned around budgeting, stresses around profitability and things like that. What are some successes where MSLs have grown clinician adoption or revenue and patient access to precision medicine, and how do you think about measuring the ROI, for an MSL team that is decidedly not measured by the growth of those sales and revenue?
The tough question for every VP of medical affairs at the end of the day is, how do I communicate what my team does and how it's moving the business forward? That's the fight every day. What I found effective and successful is that, first off, helping people understand the simple fact that access to clinicians is being shut down, right? Salespeople today do not have the access that they had 5 years ago, even pre-COVID. Things changed, and clinicians' doors are closed regularly, and hospital systems are regularly closing doors to salespeople and commercial colleagues, unfortunately. I remember walking into a hospital and pre-COVID and with a salesperson, and we walked right in the door. They did not have a rep track or commercial visit system at the front door for anyone to assess or use. Post COVID, same salesperson walk in the same hospital door. That hospital now has a security personnel at the door sitting right by the rep track system to ensure that every industry representative is in the system. That has happened across every organization that I have seen post COVID. So that access is now becoming very limited. The interesting thing about medical affairs is we are not considered commercial representatives, so we are not required by law to be a part of any rep track type system. So we are allowed continued access to most hospitals that's typically unfettered and less gatekeeped. So that's one. Access is limited, and you'll need medical affairs professionals to help you gain access to those clinicians that you'll need to talk to. Now, once you've done that, that's step one. Now, how do you get to return on investment? I believe that the medical affairs departments are required and should be required to offer continuing education, either through CME or PACE accreditation or other types of clinical education as a part of their regular mandate. And all of that should be supporting the diagnostic testing that you're doing or the therapeutic that you're launching. We track, in my experience, we track participants, we track connections, we track test scores from any of these educational events regularly. And so that helps to really broaden the net of people who understand your diagnostic or therapeutic solution. Two, the field medical team is, in my experience, always required to track their scientific engagements. And those scientific engagements are the direct face-to-face interactions with clinicians where they're talking about specific strategically important parts of your diagnostic or therapeutic. There's a need for medical affairs to not just be reactive, but to be proactive. And that proactivity is tracked through those field medical engagements. Obviously, we go to conferences, and that's an expensive proposition. But that's also where a lot of those face to face scientific exchanges happen. That's where there's the walls are removed from kind of the formality of being in the hospital or being in a clinic, and you can have those real, honest face to face engagements. The last thing I would track, and I tracked in my experience as a medical affairs leader, was the number of relationships you developed. And what does that mean? That doesn't mean, did I send you an email from a cold email list that with a templated email that we wrote in my medical affairs department? No. What I want to know is, how often are you talking to the same person over and over again? You should have a, what I like to call, a customer journey in your mind, right? You're identifying and figuring out what the best utility of this person is for our business. Is it for them to buy? Maybe. Is it for them to be a speaker and part of a speakers bureau? Maybe. Is it for them to be a KOL? Possibly. Is it for them to be a part of the clinical trial that we know we have going on or are planning for in the next 2 years? That's all possible. And it's that relationship building that provides those relationships and those connections to the organization. So it's those things that I track. So I track CME, right? Very upfront. I track scientific engagements. We track relationships. And that is the return on investment that actually accelerates your future much faster than it would happen if none of those happened.